Alright, hello everyone, this is Naya. I'm going to be doing a Magicka Nightblade Destro Resto build for the Summerset patch. Right here you see a overview of the build. I'm using an add-on called Overview. It's like how Superstar used to be. Overall, you can kind of change how the layout is, you can see things better, so I kind of like it. That is just my opinion though. For those of you who know me, I typically play a Dark Elf. I'm a Breton now. With the Summerset patch, I found it fit to see more cost reduction. And Breton comes with 3% cost reduction. So that's pretty cool for Magicka. And you're not losing too much damage by playing a Breton over a Dunmer in PvP scenarios because of how Battle Spirit works. 7% fire damage is more like, 3.5, so, yeah. However, mitigations are still the same, so we still get that passive spell resist. I'm on my back bar right now, so it's a bit higher. Right now I am using, in my opinion, the strongest sustain stat in the game. And the reason I say it's the strongest sustain stat in the game is not because, of the flat numbers that make it strong, but the versatility. It is the most versatile sustain stat in the game, as well as being the strongest. Alteration Mastery. 6% cost reduction to everything you do in combat. Does not apply to, fixing your gear at a vendor. If you notice, my Resto ult is a little bit cheaper, which is nice. Soul Harvest is a little bit cheaper, which I don't quite need, but it's nice. And Force Pulse, well, Crushing Shock, cost 2.1k Magicka. As a base cost, that's almost 3k, and I've reduced it even further. Add on to that, I have siphoning attacks in my back bar, and I can pretty comfortably use Force Pulse as a spammable. Or not Force Pulse, Crushing Shock. Now the reason I'm using Crushing Shock instead of Funnel is because I've taken this into Cyrodiil, and it is extremely powerful. In a duel, I may favor Funnel over Crushing because healing, but the fact that having Crushing Shock slotted gives us access to all of these passives is very, very powerful. And until they fix Ancient Knowledge, like I've been asking for a while, I won't even be using Imbue Weapon on this, even though I absolutely love Imbue and it looks sick as hell. But another time perhaps. Another thing that you can use... Oh dear. There's a bug with Dressing Room right now as of making this video, so if you use Dressing Room, you're going to want to be careful. It has a tendency to not switch your back bar weapon. Good to know. As another thing you can do with a Breton, as a damage set, I am using Shackle Breaker. Yes, I consider Shackle Breaker a damage set rather than I do a sustain set. It's a damage set that features sustain. Now, you could use Torg's Pack. A while ago, I used to use an infused Torg's Pack staff on my front bar with Lich on my back bar, and it would be Oblivion damage. So that's like 2k Oblivion damage every other light attack, which is pretty powerful. And if we notice here, Torg's Pack comes with 3k spell resist, which makes me unbelievably tanky when I'm fighting other Magicka builds. Now, this isn't a requirement, it's just kind of a nice thing. It synergizes well with Breton, and I still have 15k spell resist unbuffed otherwise, and with the amount of Destro bombs that go off. That's not bad. So yeah, let's go over the skills that we're using. As Deltia once said, when it comes to passives, if it has to do with combat, you want to take it. So I'm not even going to go over passives. If it has to do with combat, take it. Immerse yourself, your bread and butter burst. this got absolutely no changes. Sort of surprises me, but okay. You're going to want to weave all your skills, and then you're going to fire that off. Crushing Shock. One of the better known spambles in the game. In my opinion, it costs too much. Mostly for PvE reasons. For PvP, I understand why it costs the cost it does, but in using Alteration Mastery plus the Breton cost reduction, it is abhorrently cheap, and it is not worth using Strife over Crushing when we have that chance. So then we have Shade. Shade got a really fun rework. Watch this. I don't even need a target. I can put Shade down. I can walk downstairs, mind my own business. I can go back upstairs if I want. So I'm actually really grateful for that Shade rework. Overall, it's a really cool rework because it's something I'm actually going to use, as opposed to the fact that they fixed the Strife animation canceling, or not animation canceling, but the animations in general. Yet I don't use Strife as much as I used to. Just kind of sad. Now on my back bar, I've got Cloak, you know, a bread and butter Nightblade skill. We have Refreshing Path, which is kind of like a passive heal over time / damage ability. It procs Valken, so you can comfortably use Valken Scoria as a damage set if you wanted to. I don't want to. You can use Path and Cripple. So these two are kind of more defensive oriented skills. You can use Cloak offensively. Fear is a very powerful AoE, not snare, CC, which applies a snare afterwards. The maim that it applies is almost not worth noting because it's so short-lived, and you're going to get better maim from Shade or fucking Wizard's Riposte. You know, the set that if you breathe in someone's general direction, you're permanently maimed forever. And then Cripple. We have to have a siphoning bar, or a siphoning ability on our first bar, so that we get the Magicka Flood passive. And since I often had Cripple on my back bar, my Cripple actually didn't hit that hard, because Destro's staff spell damage is slightly higher than Resto's staff. So my Cripple was always kind of weak, and I used it as a additional pressure / utility skill, whereas now I can actually use it as a I'm going to kill you threat. And then we have Soul Harvest on your front bar. You can use Incap. Incap is far superior to Soul Harvest. I like the extra damage. I don't want to be too cheesy. I'm already using a little bit of Cancer on some of my builds, so in terms of cancerous playstyles, I'm going to use less, so Soul Harvest. Also, Soul Harvest does a lot of damage when you come out of stealth. I've hit NPCs for like 30k, cut that in 2/3, and it's like 10k on a player. So yeah, it's a pretty good number. Continuing on to the back bar, we've got, this is my flex spot here. I have Mirage because passive dodge is way too powerful and needs to be removed from the game, as I've said multiple times. Even on like a fucking magic ability, it just needs to be removed from the game. Healing Ward. It is so hard to play a Magicka Nightblade without Healing Ward. This is your quote-unquote defensive spammable. It's like our version of Breath of Life, except it's a lot shoddier. We are mostly relying on heals over time, and because of the fact that we don't have Strife as our main spammable, we do kinda need Refreshing up, because I've always had Refreshing and Strife up, but I've never always had Siphoning attacks. That's the difference. Siphoning attacks will also give you a nice little heal every time you do a light attack. So when you are being offensive, you are still healing yourself and sustaining yourself, and standing in your path while you're attacking will also net you a fair amount of healing. Very, very nice amount of healing. And then we go here, Resto's ult, or Restoration Ultimate, Light's Champion. Very powerful defensive ultimate, cost a little bit too much in my opinion. Using Alteration Mastery does help that. So, yeah. Very, very useful ultimate. As for sustainability, you'll notice that your sustain is slightly different, depending on the race you play. As playing a Breton, mine is pretty good. You may have to do a heavy attack or two, and that's sort of okay. heavy attacks are a fair source of damage, I will frequently cloak and then do a heavy attack from cloak, or cloak reposition myself and then resto heavy, because resto heavies give back a lot of resources. They also give you minor mending, and if I hit a healing ward right after that, then whatever, or not minor mending, major mending, and then my healing ward heal is pretty bloody high after that. Going back into the gear that we use, I'm using Shackle Breaker and Alteration Mastery. I've mentioned that so far. Shackle Breaker, I'm using this instead of Juliana's because I like the max stats. I typically have pretty low max Magicka, not on purpose. So having having Shackle Breaker is a pretty good alternative, and then the stamina recovery it gives me is also pretty desirable. The max stamina it gives is inconsequential to an extent, but I do like it. I need to pick up a Triglyph at some point and put it on one of my pieces because, yeah. Alteration Mastery gives a little bit of crit and some basic Magicka recovery. That basic Magicka recovery is definitely enough to help you sustain, because even right now, I'm looking at, let's see, it's a pretty good number, and then we buff ourselves up, we're at 2k recovery. 2k recovery is pretty good for a fairly offensively oriented build. You can put Mark in the Mirage slot if you want to, if you're like fighting Nightblades. I have also put a Psijic skill there, Meditate. Now, for the most part, this build is a non-Psijic skill build, because I want to still be able to reach people who don't use Summerset. But for the people who do have access to the Psijic Order skill line, you could put Meditate here. This would help you sustain different resources, so that's not bad. I found this is useful for cloaking or shading out, line of sighting your enemy. Hitting this for a few seconds, just sit tight, gather your resources, and then you can bar swap cancel and move on with your life. Now, if you're going to be using Meditate, you might consider dropping Restoration Ultimate, because this gives you Major Force and Major Protection. The Major Force is desirable, because it allows you to be a little bit more offensive right after you pop this. So we could theoretically drop this though, because of this passive right here. While you're casting or channeling a Psijic Order ability, you gain Major Protection, reducing your damage taken by 30%. This gives that same thing, and what I consider, or what I see a lot of people doing is hitting Resto Alt and then going right into Meditate to sustain the resources, but they don't need to, because you're still gaining Major Protection. So as long as you are not interrupted, which you can be interrupted, part of why I'm using Force Pulse is to interrupt people, dealing with reses, botards, people casting Time Stop, because that skill is pretty obnoxious. I don't think it's overpowered as a lot of people do, but it is a little obnoxious. Siphoning attacks needs to be on a back bar for, again, the Magicka Flood passive, so that's why that's there. This is overall just your flex spot. I've put a few other things here. I put Entropy there at one point when I was trying to experiment with different potions. I still, as always, use PvE spell pots. I don't really diversify my potions that much. I have also put, let's see, rapid regen here. I hear there's a bug with mutagen, so I haven't really touched mutagen that much. Rapid regen is more healing than path, so this would help for not having Strife, but I find that the damage mitigation you get in open world with Mirage to be worth it. So yeah, and come on, you look kind of cool. You're just a ball of phasmic energy. Now, if you do have a Psijic Order skill here, Meditate, I would suggest replacing Light's Champion with two things. Soul Tether, which is a undodgeable, assuming you can fucking hit the person, because the radius is extremely small. It is 6 meters, which I think needs to be buffed to, like, I don't know, 8? Because even when someone is within the 6 meter radius, I've seen them dodge it somehow. It's kind of complex that way. Zan's is 10 meters, by the way, and Malobeth is 8 meters, so I don't see why this can't be at least 8 meters. That's a good kind of offensive slash defensive ultimate. I often use that when I'm playing two-handed, which I'll also do a build video for. And another one, Soul Assault's good for dealing with roly-polies. Another ultimate, which I actually really like, is Shooting Star. Shooting Star or Ice Comet, whichever you prefer. I like Shooting Star because it's more damage, it refunds ultimate, and that's pretty cool for both PvE and PvP scenarios. Shooting Star on a Magicka Nightblade and on a Magicka Sorc, as well as a Dragonite, but it's a bit pricey for most Dragonites, so they tend to go for other things. You can fear people out of their block. So the one counter for Meteor, as many people know, is you block it. You can't dodge it. You could ward through it, but you still get CC'd. So you have to block it, and it's extremely telegraphed, so it's not hard to block whatsoever. But we can get around that by casting it, going to our front bar, and right before it hits, we fear our enemy out of block, and they get hit with the full damage of the Meteor. It also grants Empower if that's desirable to you at all. With how Empower is, I don't even have that passive because I'm kind of crunched for passives or skill points right now. So I don't even have that. That is up to you. You could put it on your front bar and then do Rest Ult on your back bar, but I personally prefer Soul Harvest / Incap. Even when I'm ganking, Soul Harvest and Incap are very powerful. The only reason I have Soul Assault for the Perfectionist right now is because roly-polies. They're bloody everywhere. I think that just about covers it up. We can look at my CP really quickly. Because I finally got enough, I put one in here. Great, I hit the jump point. This is a jump point. This is a jump point. This is a jump point. Now, because I'm playing a Breton, I have more in Hardy than LE Defender, because, you know, reasons. I didn't totally do the math, but I did just put more into physical resistance than spell resistance for obvious reasons. I put one more into resistant because I had 1 point left over, so I just stuck one in here. So resistant has a point in it. Thaumaturge is 34. We do a fair amount of PvE, so I don't mind having damage in Thaumaturge. I also use Cripple, and it increases the damage in my Cripple, as well as, you know, Flame Clench, even Soul Tether's damage over time component will be increased, as well as Meteors even. Look over here, we have Master at Arms. I put 66 into Master at Arms. Some people are going to 72. That is not totally required to be viable. It's literally just like a 1% increase if you go to 72. So I'm totally fine with a 66 point tree. And then I put 9 into Staff Expert because this will overall add up in a long fight. It's added pressure, and added pressure can make people crumble. So over a long fight, this will add up, or even a short fight. This can contribute to your overall damage done to a target. I also put that 9 in here because this Butcher passive is actually surprisingly powerful. A majority of the time, not a majority, but a surprisingly large amount of the time, I have actually seen my killing blows done by light attacks, because my light attack damage is increased by a little bit, not a lot, by 25%, or not by 25%, but when enemies are below 25% health. That does kind of help in PvE too. It makes my light attacks a bit of an execute, and if you're using a VMA staff when you're doing PvE, even more damage. So I don't mind that. Elfborn, I put 66 into Elfborn, and I put 56 into Elemental Expert. These are jump points. I'm not sure if this is the mathematically correct amount, so you can use this, or you can do the math on your own. Like, going to 72% from Elfborn, right as I have it now, or 72 points from where I have it, is literally just a 1% increase. Over here it was like almost a 2% increase? No, it was a 1% increase as well, so it's kind of whatever, and I put like 3 points into the spell erosion because I had 3 points left. Now, because I'm using Alteration Mastery, I can actually block now, and it feels so good. I also put 10 more points into Shadow Word as what I previously had. I still have 3 in here because that's just what I had left over, and blocking is important. your blocking is a lot more inexpensive than dodge rolling. And I already have a lot of points into dodge roll, so I might as well put some in a block. If you want to take points out of dodge roll, because you don't do a lot of rolling, you could put them into befoul, because my only source of befoul is my soul harvest. I don't have that many points into befoul, but soul harvest does help me secure kills, so that befoul helps keep my enemy from recovering. Mooncalf, stamina recovery, always important in PvP if you're playing a Magicka build, even a stamina build. Arcanist, I have this amount so that I can get the wind running passive. It's a very underrated passive in my opinion. I like it. It's just an overall nice small passive. Something that I wish could actually be like a racial passive rather than a CP passive, but it's kind of whatever. Tenacity, I put 10 on Tenacity just to reach that point. You could put them in here and just get to that amount however you wish, but because doing heavy attacks with the Resto staff give you so many resources, putting a few into Tenacity doesn't hurt, and in PvE you do a few heavy attacks here and there anyways. I put one in the Sprinter because I'm a pleb. Alteration Mastery does help me sprint more, but putting one in the Sprinter, since sprinting isn't necessarily a stacking cost, but it's a continual cost, this does add up. It gets you maybe like 1 more second out of sprints. I haven't done the math. And then 52 into Warlord. You could put like 54 into Warlord. Really important passive to have. I don't even have one in Siphoner. I don't like putting any in Siphoner. So Warlord is a good way to go. If you don't know what to do with your extra points, stick them in Warlord. Overall, that pretty much covers it. We'll go look at a build overview, just really quickly. You get to see all my enchantments. I'm using Witch Mother's Potent Brew, in case you didn't just already assume that, because that is the god food. As for Mundus, I'm using the Apprentice. You could use something else, but the Apprentice is just perfect amount of damage and healing. I put full points into health because I like hitting that threshold, and then 60 into Magicka. It's not big or anything, it's just I want to hit that threshold for both PvE and PvP reasons, so I put 4 into health. You could put more into health because in PvP, due to the 50% reduction of damage plus all other damage reduction sources in PvP from Battle Spirit, you could put more into health. You could put up to like 8 in health and still do effective damage with your max Magicka. So that's up to you. As for our crit, if you don't like Shacklebreaker, you can still use Julianus, and that gives a lot of spell crit. See here I'm using Bloodspawn, so I do have a source of stamina recovery. Shacklebreaker is an extra source of stamina recovery. For me, this is just, further enables 1vx sort of thing, because you need stamina recovery to break free, to dodge, to recover after you're blocking. You could use Bloodthorn though. I have actually considered using Bloodthorn. Bloodthorn plus Alteration Mastery is an interesting combo. You don't do a lot of damage though, so I've chosen to go against that. I have considered doing Alteration Mastery and Innate Axiom. That would be a cool open world build. And as for a dueling build, I have considered using Shacklebreaker as well as Innate Axiom. I would need to craft jewelry for that though, because those are both crafted sets. Innate Axiom does a fuck ton of damage on a Magicka Nightblade. I would need to drop Force Pulse, add Strife again, because again, it's also a dueling build, and having that extra healing is important. But because of how Innate Axiom works, you would need more skill points than anything else, so my bar would likely look something like this for like open world dueling. And for open world dueling, I typically have Shooting Star in my back bar. Harness is also pretty important to have if you're doing a duel, especially if you're fighting a Magicka Dragonite, because Harness, I don't know how this has gotten nerfed yet. The Magicka return on Harness is insane. In my opinion, it's why Magicka builds are strong. For when it comes to wards, and in my opinion, it's too fucking strong. this needs to be changed in order to enable more diverse play, because it doesn't just absorb damage from magic attacks, it absorbs it from magic, fire, lightning, ice, poison, which is a stamina thing, and disease. So that's also affecting stamina builds too. Personally, and a lot of people agree with me in many respects, stamina is overperforming. That doesn't mean we need to nerf stamina, but it does mean that there need to be more available versions of CC breaks or stuff like that. But having Harness the way it is, the refund of Magicka is pretty extreme, and it also, like, reminds me of the days of 1 Tamriel where Sorks were so powerful with their shield stacking. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Have a good day, everyone.